So, welcome back to Faithful Friday. For the second day of murder that we do every year, we are going to my home state of Texas. This case apparently was well known at one point, and apparently was national news at one point. Of course, this did happen back in the 80s, so of course, most of my audience may or may not have been alive when this happened. But if you were alive or if you know anybody involved in this case, definitely let me know. If you lived in the city, definitely let me know. If you know the whereabouts of anybody that's still alive in this case, again, definitely let me know. And so with that being said, let's go and get started. So Candace Land Wheeler, who was born on November 15th, 1949, in Lucas, Texas. She was said to have been a military child. You know, military kids are constantly moving because, you know, their parents are getting deployed. Oh my gosh. Getting moved to like different stations across the country. So that's what she was going on. And she was known to be very charming and to be getting her way in life, which you know how those people usually end up. So apparently, eventually, obviously, she becomes an adult, and then eventually she realizes that this ain't the life that she wants. So she goes out looking for rich men, so she could basically just be a stay-at-home housewife while they are going out working. Because again, they're rich, so she doesn't have to work. So then she winds up meeting Pat Montgomery, and apparently he was making 70 grand at the time, like per year. And remember, this is back in like the 70s. So right now he would be making about $340,000 today. So basically, Pat was making good money, and Candace was going to be comfortable. And at first, apparently, the first date they had, apparently was a bust. They didn't get along. It was kind of awkward, and they thought they were never going to see each other again. But Pat's uncle died, and apparently he came back to Candy for comfort. And after this, they saw a different side of each other. They then get married, and they have a daughter named Jenny, and then they have a son who's like not named the following year. So of course, while in the town of, I guess we're still in Lucas, Texas, Candace would join the church of the First United Methodist Church of Lucas. And of course here, this is where she meets two other important characters, Betty Gore and her husband Alan. And so Betty was apparently born on July 9th, 1950 in Kansas. She was said to have been very popular because she grew up in like a small town in Kansas. It was like due to her like beauty. But she said to be like very intelligent as well. Alan was born in 1947, also in Kansas, but not in the same city as Betty. Oh, as I thought they would have mentioned that. And so he would graduate from Larned Senior High School in 1965. He would get math and business degrees from Southwestern University, which is where he met Betty. So this is where they meet. So Betty and Alan met, and apparently, like I said, in college, so they're both adults. However, Alan apparently was Betty's teacher. So I guess they were trying to keep it obviously on the down low for that reason, because that's considered unprofessional. So then Alan basically enrolls in Kansas State University for a master's degree in computer science. Kansas State apparently was like 2 hours away. So then apparently two of them get married. Okay, so they have a daughter. Then they move to Wylie, Texas. And then in 1978, Betty becomes an elementary school teacher teaching 5th grade. And it's actually said that apparently she wasn't very well liked because she pretty much was giving the kids like detention for like the littlest things. So she apparently didn't have the best record with her students. However, during the course of their marriage, not only did they have the child that they already had, who was like unnamed for some reason, they also had, they were also taking care of up to like 60 foster kids. So I guess they decided they wanted to give like the foster kids a chance. So that was nice of them. And then of course, Alan, he had a lot of out of town meetings doing his job, which is Texas Instruments. And he was working there as an engineer. So of course, Betty and Candace, they become friends at this point. And she's complaining to Candy about how she misses Alan because he's always out of town for his little work meetings. Candy would say, I'm bored of my marriage. I want an affair. Spice it up a little bit. Which, you know, again, 70s, a little scandalous, ma'am. And unbeknownst to Betty, of course, she winds up choosing Alan, which is Betty's husband. So the story apparently goes is that the church was playing a little volleyball game. And apparently Alan and Candace are on the same team. Alice and Candy, oh my gosh. Alan and Candy are on the same team. They're both going for the ball at the same time. They bump into each other. Nobody really thinks anything of it because, of course, volleyball, you're going to bump into each other. It happens. However, apparently at that moment, Candy, oh my god, whatever this woman's name is, that's what she says. She felt something different about Alan, and she noticed his cologne. She said that it smelled really nice. And apparently after the game, she had offered herself like for the affair. And of course, he declined because, you know, he's married. She's married. You're friends with my wife. That's messed up. However, apparently it's said that he had fantasies about her throughout the next several weeks. And ironically, on her birthday, he actually says, down to see where this goes. So, of course, Candy apparently didn't have feelings for Alan originally. And she actually said in her conditions that no feelings were to be caught. So this would just be strictly just sex, just like to spice up her life, because I guess her life with Pat in the bedroom wasn't doing it. And she said, look, no feelings. If either one of us catch feelings, you gotta tell the other and immediately cut it off. And then any fees that they had to like a hotel, because that's what they're gonna do it at, because you can't do it at the house, because you got kids. A hotel, food, and gas, that was all to be split evenly too. And they were to do it while Alan had a 2-hour lunch break. 2-hour lunch break during his job, and both spouses are at their jobs. And just hope neither spouse comes home early. And so they were to meet like once every 2 weeks outside of a hotel. And this was outside of the city limits, so that way they wouldn't get recognized. Because apparently at the time, the city they were living in was one of those small towns, like everybody knew everybody. So you can imagine, like, everybody knew everybody's business. So we got to meet outside of town so nobody recognizes us. And apparently this started in December of 1979. And they set an exact date to start. And Candy had apparently referred to this day as D-Day. And then, of course, it's going from pretty much every other week, so bi-weekly, if that's what you want to call it, to weekly. And they're even having picnic dates in the room after they have sex. But some sources are saying before, but I feel like it would make sense to do it afterwards. So, of course, Betty and Alan, they already got a kid, but Betty, of course, she announced that she's pregnant again. And, of course, Candy, now trying to bring suspicions to herself and look a good friend, she throws a baby shower for this baby for Betty. And by this point, they're still, Alan and Candy apparently had stopped at one point. But when she threw the baby shower, apparently by that point they were already going back at it again. And so then several months later, Alan and Betty, they go to a little couples retreat, apparently for like married couples who are going through like conflicts and stuff. And then Alan decides, I'm going to give the marriage with Betty another shot, and I gotta like stop seeing you. I'm trying to do right by my wife. And so Betty's like, hey, it worked for us. It might work for you and, Pat, because she's trying to make, this is her friend. She's trying to make her, if it can make my marriage work, give it a recommendation, pretty much. And Candy, I guess, like, declined to do it. Because, again, Betty, as far as we know, still doesn't know about the affair. So Candy decides, we're going to have an affair with another man since Alan pretty much, we can't go with Alan anymore. So then after their second child is born, Betty unfortunately goes through postpartum depression, which apparently is common. But obviously postpartum depression, this is the 80s, so they didn't have like a name for it. They didn't know what it was called. They didn't know like just why it was going on like we do. So she didn't have like the proper resources like we do today. For context, okay? So obviously she reaches out to Candy because, Candy got kids. This is her friend. I need somebody to confide in, as one does. And apparently a couple months after this child's born, Alan decides we need to stop the affair for good. And of course, Candy, she is outgoing and bubbly as she once was after Alan had stopped this affair. So it's believed, obviously by this point, Candy had caught feelings, even though she said, we don't need to be catching feelings. And so on June 13th, 1980, Alyssa, who is Betty and Alan's daughter, they're sleeping over at Candy's house because her and Jenny are the same age. And remember, Betty and Candy are friends. So Alyssa and Jenny, they eventually become friends. So she's sleeping over at her friend Jenny's house, which Candy is Jenny's mom. So, of course, she apparently was supposed to go over to swim lessons the next day. She left her swimsuit over at her house. So she's like, I'll go over and get it for you. This point, Alan's not in town. He's on yet another business trip. Apparently Betty would be like very worried and very clingy whenever they described as clingy, but I feel like it's kind of understandable because you don't want to be left alone by yourself with like a whole ass newborn. And so, because sometimes she'll get lonely. And so he would call her and she wasn't answering after like multiple calls, which he thought was weird because normally like she would pick up on like the first call, sometimes even the first ring. Because there were times apparently she was waiting for him to call her. And so he would call neighbors to ask, like, basically, you do a welfare check on my wife, make sure she's okay, because, she has the baby. Make sure they're okay, at least. And so call Candy, he's like, hey, like, that you're her friend, can you check on her, make sure she's okay? And Candy apparently told Alan that Betty was okay. So Alan calls another neighbor, because he's like, look, I kind of like, I have a bad feeling, my wife normally is not the type to not answer the phone, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, like, can you, like, see if this woman was okay? And more, also, the baby, because, like, what's going on with the baby? And I feel like she would have said something to me if she had left. Because apparently she, like, rarely ever left the house. So I feel like she definitely would have said something to me if she left. And so, a neighbor goes over, notices the door is unlocked, which, apparently they were trying to get in through the back. They came over to the front to see if it was unlocked, and it just hadn't been unlocked. So they were like, oh, well, fuck. So they go in, and they find Betty dead on the ground, face down. They originally thought that she shot herself, and they actually told Alan that, and Alan was confused because apparently they didn't have a gun, so how was she going to shoot herself? At least that he know of, she didn't have a gun. They didn't own guns. So, how'd that happen? The baby is, however, safe. The baby has a diaper full, heavily soiled, is crying, and apparently the baby's voice was very like hoarse, like it was about to go out. So that's how you know the baby had basically been crying for a while. And Alan, of course, asked like, "Hey, can you watch our kids since Betty's just been found dead and I'm not in town? Somebody needs to watch these kids." And Candy, she's good old Southern hospitality. She's like, "Yeah, of course." And so police actually find one of Candy's fingerprints and a size 5 flip flop in the house, which is the same size flip flop that Candy wears. And of course, as you can imagine, yeah, Candy did it. Okay, so then she basically goes and destroys her flip flops, the same flip flops that she had in the house, with some garden shears. And of course, they were trying to dismiss it. Well, basically, I don't think they really suspected that Candy did it because she was such a well-known member of the city. And also, Candy is friends with Betty, so of course her fingerprints are going to be in the house. Because your friends do come over and visit. Their kids are friends. It would make sense to have Candy's fingerprints in the house. So of course, Candy is pretty much questioned pretty quickly after it's confirmed that she is the last confirmed person to have seen Betty alive, which that already looks suspicious on her. She would claim that she went over there just to get Alyssa's swimsuit and then go straight to Bible study. However, a 5-year-old friend of one of the girls, it was somebody's friend, apparently was like, I don't know if she was walking by or she was on a bike, but she apparently was going by the house and saw Candace leaving out about 11 a.m. So her story kind of wasn't adding up, and apparently she was even late to like the Bible study. And so by this point, Alan had apparently come back into town, had confessed about the affair, and he took a polygraph test and passed to show that he wasn't involved in his wife's death. So then Candy gets questioned again, and they're like, look, we know about the affair. See, she would confess about the murder now. Because it would make sense for you to kill the dude that you're sleeping with, kill his wife, to try to see if you can get with the dude. Because, there'd be murders like that happen. And so, she is offered a polygraph test, where she refuses, which isn't illegal, but they already have enough against her, and they were like, the fact that you're not even wanting to take a polygraph test, we can go ahead and arrest you. And that's what they do. So, of course, once she is arrested, she has to change the jail uniform, and while changing into the jail uniform, cuts are noticed on her. And I remember, I should have said this, Betty was actually hit with an axe 41 times. So obviously this is a very brutal crime, and there are going to be cuts on whoever did this. So the fact that there were cuts on her, including there's like a cut on one of her toes, that definitely made her look bad. So then her bail is only set for $100,000, but she only paid like $10,000 and promised she'll pay the $90,000 later. And apparently the church actually raised the money for her to like get out because they truly thought that she was innocent. And so instead of the judge actually had to do a gag order on the case because of all the live details that the police were leaking out. So anything big that happened in the case, the police were just leaking out like that. Just like immediately. We're not going to wait for all the details. It don't matter if it make Candy look bad. We leaking it out like that. So then her lawyer, Don Crowder, he came back with a loophole saying that Candy was strip searched illegally. There was a violation of civil rights. And you were leaking unfavorable news to the press, making Candy look bad. So there's going to be a biased jury because they're only hearing bad stuff about her. And I didn't exactly hear the results of that, but just thought that was interesting. He was trying to do a little loophole in a gag order. At trial, Candy basically testifies that, yes, I did kill Betty. So basically that shocks everybody. Like, wait, what? So then she's like, yes, I did kill Betty. However, I did kill Betty in self-defense. Because, we in Texas, you claim self-defense, you could get off. Because again, you defending yourself. So then she said, I only stopped whacking Betty, remember, 41 times, until I got tired. And then apparently she said she was put under hypnosis before the trial, and a psychiatrist came in and said there was a point in Kansas' life when she was like 4, and apparently there's some glass that had cut her on her face, and there was a lot of blood. Obviously, being a child, seeing that much blood, she's going to be scared, she's going to be screaming, it's going to be a mess. And her mother is in the hospital with her, and she's like, basically telling her to shh, and like not call the scene, and what are people going to think about you? And so Candy basically claimed that her and Candy were arguing because Betty found out about the affair and was confronting her about it. And apparently they were getting loud enough to the point to where Betty was scared it was going to wake the baby up. And so Betty had innocently just told her, shh, so you don't wake the baby up. However, apparently this had triggered Candace, and this is what caused her to kill Betty in self-defense. So then after 3.5 hours of being out, deliberation, whatever you want to call it, when the jury's out before they make a verdict, they come back not guilty. So Candy is basically acquitted of the murder of Betty. So of course there is public outrage, but she's leaving the court, she's being called a murderer, because like obviously you did it, and it's not fair that you getting out just like scot-free, because that's setting a bad example for future people who want to kill somebody. So then the family, they decide we're going to move to Georgia, because ain't no way we can stay in Texas after this, because all the hate that we getting. And it said that 3 out of the 12 jury members, so a good 25%, were actually friends with Candace. Obviously, you know, we can't be doing that, because, you know, that's why they do jury duty, to make sure, you know, you're not friends, you're not related to anybody involved in the case, so there's no bias. And it said that the judge was actually, okay, hear me out. Okay, keep track of me here. The judge apparently was actually Candace's lawyer's daughter's soccer coach. So that was another set of bias. But apparently, again, you can't exactly do double jeopardy, even when it comes to murder. And plus, she's been acquitted, so like, what really can you do? And so, yeah. So, of course, Alan, as you can imagine, he left Texas, and custody of him and Betty's kids went to Betty's parents. And then apparently he had remarried 3 months after the trial, so, you know, pretty quickly. But then, of course, they divorced, and it said that he is currently living in Florida with a longtime girlfriend. And so in 1990, because, you know, they move quick when it comes to these scandalous murder cases, they already made a movie out called A Killing in a Small Town. And that movie is pretty much based off the murder that I just told you about. So there you go. If you want like a visual of what happened, go watch that movie. Sadly, on November 10th, 1998, Don Crowder, who was, remember I said that's Candy's lawyer, he had actually committed suicide after he had lost his brother the year before. So it's believed that that's the reason why he did it. But again, like, we don't know. I don't want to assume. So yeah, that was pretty tragic. So apparently 2 series have since come out regarding this case. And so Hulu came out with a series called Candy in May of 2022, so last year. And then in April of this year, HBO came out with a series called Love and Death. As far as the kids go, the last known reports of them that I could find was that Elisa was going by the name Lisa Harder, because I guess she didn't want to be, apparently she's married, so I got assumed that's her married name, because she obviously don't want to be associated with the case. She has 2 kids herself and is living in Kansas. And then Bethany, who apparently was the name of the other daughter, she is living with her husband in Vegas. And they got married apparently like 2012. So yeah, like I said, that is a controversial case of Candace Montgomery. Apparently she is still alive. She's like in her 70s. And she's working as a mental health counselor with her daughter Jenny. That's not mentioned in the notes, but I had remembered, I was like, I know this woman's still alive somewhere. And she is, and apparently she's still in Georgia, so that's what she's doing. And apparently her and Pat did, I think, split eventually. I think like 4 years after the trial, but I didn't find it for certain. But yeah, her and Jenny apparently still working together, she's still alive, all that good stuff. Definitely know what you think down below. Remember, if you know anybody that's involved in the case, you live in the city, if you've actually met Candace like after the murder, definitely let me know. If you think she did it, if you think she's innocent, let me know. And so that being said, I'll see you guys. That's it for the second day of murder. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
So if I play dead, will you regret everything that you did, that you said? I don't think you understand what you're doing, and my heart's black and blue from the bruising. I feel like when I'm with you I'm losing. I feel like you think that this amusing, sitting there gaslighting and confusing. Was it me? Is it me? Am I deluded? I'm the one who's always sorry, the conclusion. Even though I offer all of the solutions, I wish you loved me like I love you, it's stupid. When I'm alone with you I never feel lucid. I wish I wasn't struck by Cupid. I wish when I first saw you I knew this. When I'm with you I feel so useless, I feel diluted. My heart